We are here at 125 South St. Augustine Street in front of what was the Pulaski Movie Theater. The theater was started in 1940 and managed by Mrs. Dora Ziem. The theater opened on Easter weekend of 1940 with a double showing of the movies The Showdown and 17. The theater had multiple showings, with 5 showings on Saturdays, 4 showings on Sundays, and weeknights 2 showings. We believe between these 2 steps, where this window is located, was the ticket booth, and above the marquee.
Well, first, the Pulaski Theater actually started out in the high school, the old high school, which has been torn down. It wasn't there, but it was Verna Ziem was an English teacher there, and she, when she taught me, she was pretty old, but her mother was still alive, and they used to run the theater out of the high school. So people would come to the high school to go to the movie theater. It was back in the day before seat belts, but my parents would load all us kids up in the back of the truck and we would drive into town about 7 miles. And then we would go to the movie theater, and they would, I don't know where they went. They went riding around or wherever they went. And the things that I remember from the theater is it was always like King Kong or some sort of dinosaur movie that, you know, like battles or something like that.
Well, I was a little kid during the war, and I remember going, like I said, and seeing the newsreel on the screen. Of course, it was probably a month old when you saw it already, but we used to get our war news that way from the theater. It used to show, you know, some gunfire and fighting and torpedoes, and on the screen, you know, it was a newsreel. Some of the first one I saw, I was real little. It was called 10,000 Years Before Christ, and it had dinosaurs, you know, and people getting eaten by dinosaurs. They always sent a show card once a month, hung it on a nail next to the calendar, and you could always tell what's coming.
The show house, I remember finding a 50-cent piece on the floor, and I kept it for my next time I went to the show house. I didn't go to the show house very often when I was younger. But when I met him, that's when we went on our dates. And that's the only thing we ever went to was the show. And of course, then he had to take his brothers and sisters along. And then they would always sit between us.
Okay.
So
Paul.
He was the youngest at the time, and he always sat between us.
I always enjoyed the westerns.
Yeah, Western.
Hopalong Cassidy, and Gene Autry, and Roy Rogers, the Cisco Kid.
Do you remember Miss Ziem?
She'd walk up and down the aisle,
Yes.
and just to make sure everything was on the up and up.
Yeah. We used to sit in the back
Oh,
row.
she was our English teacher.
Oh, she was a good teacher. All I remember her sitting, you couldn't sit too close to her because she used to, when she talked, she spit.
So if you sat in the front row, you got a shower.
Yeah, but her and her mother, I guess, lived upstairs.
Yep, upstairs apartment.
Yeah, they ran the theater. And always dressed up with a dress or a skirt or blouse, you know, so I was dressing.
Well, that's the way teachers used to dress.
Let's take a walk across the street to the Andersack ice cream shop.
Well, they had the best malts.
They did.
In the glass container, and you always got a soda cracker with it.
Joe made his own ice cream. The old building is gone now, but that was down
By the co-op.
Yeah, when you went to the co-op. After a while, Mort Munger was in there. He used to make fishing lures and stuff like that. Because I remember he used to come out here when we'd butcher roosters and take all those fancy shiny feathers, you know, that he used for making lures.
Then across the street from the show house was another dry clean, but there was a hatchery there.
Brzezinski had a hatchery there. In that lot there was a 2-story building. There was an apartment upstairs. And I remember as a kid, John Brzezinski used to live up there. And in the summertime when it was hot, it stunk to high heaven. There's a saying that when the theater in a town dies, the town dies with it. Pulaski was in its heyday then. Like you got 14 taverns, how many butcher shops, and
Yeah, a lot of grocery stores.
we were born and raised in this community and we'll die here.
Raised our kids here on the farm. Turned out to be pretty good kids.